Talkin Nets, episode 83. Special guest Eddie Gonzalez, host of the Etceteras, the ETCs podcast with Kevin Durant. But before we get to our interview with Eddie, we talk a little bit about the Kings game because it's fresh on our minds, and we might as well talk about Bruce Brown, a.k.a. Biggie Smalls. Talkin Nets, let's get it, man. Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talkin Nets, episode 83, a bonus episode, a special episode. I know you just heard us yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, but we're back. And man, this is like exactly what I wanted to do with this podcast. It's happening sooner rather than later. And we'll get there in a second. But Keith McPherson, Hudson Flynn, joining you on Wednesday night, February 24th. Last night, what did we see? The Kings? Your Brooklyn Nets beat the Kings, what was it, 127 to 118 in Brooklyn. First night, the fans get back in the Barclays Center. Hudson Flynn, say what's up to the people.
Man, honestly, the Nets didn't beat the Kings last night. It was the Brooklyn Bruce Browns. 29 points, a career high. He's a 6'4" center. He shoots like 100%. From close to the basket. The man's elite. He hit 2 threes back-to-back late in the game when he was feeling. He was the one that really put away this Kings team, a team that we've been good against, but we have not necessarily been able to play that great of defense against. And we saw our defense kind of regress in that game, but Bruce Brown was able to come in, shut him down, and it was just great to see. He was hyped watching him react to getting to his career high 29 points in real time. Like, it's interesting to me because, like, in my head, I thought, NBA players know their stats during the game. That's just what I thought, right? Because I'm used to playing 2K, and you have your stats in, like, the top right corner. But, like, I guess they don't know. They just know they're going off. They know generally what they're doing. But then watching Bruce Brown, like, look up and see, oh, my God, I got 29 points. That's just electric, and it's just so well-deserved for a player that puts in 100% every play. It's just – that's the only thing you should take away from that game is good for Bruce Brown and good for the Nets and Sean Marks for finding Bruce Brown for essentially like scraps and like a used MTA ticket.
Yeah, what did I say yesterday? They traded him for the air that pops out of the bag of chips when you buy a bag of chips and the top is all air. Yo, Bruce Brown, what's he in his second year? The way this dude plays, he's not looking at the scoreboard. He's not looking up top at that big Barclays Center big screen that has his numbers on it. He's just hustling and playing hard. He's not counting his threes and his foul shots and his layups. But, hey, what can Brown do for you? I'm not even saying that anymore. I came on the post-game thoughts, and I was like, what is Bruce Brown? What is he becoming? Like, what did Sean Marks go and find, and what are we seeing right before our eyes? He is scoring the same amount of points as James Harden, which – hey, we can't forget James Harden's triple-double.
Another one.
You see Hudson's got the shirt. You see Hudson's got the shirt, shop.johnboymedia.com/Talkin Nets. Go get you some merch.
Fire, the Coogie beard.
But last night was the Bruce Brown show. Bruce Brown was trending. And, like, I've been reading up a little bit on Bruce Brown. I heard he's a former football player, like was like all-state safety, wide receiver.
Man is one of 11 siblings.
Yeah. So
the thing about fighting for everything.
The thing about Bruce Brown, man, this guy has found the right place. He's found a home in Brooklyn. He's still developing. This is a second-year guy out of Miami who we didn't know much about when he came over here, but we were excited about him. We were excited about his defense, and that's what it is, his defense, his hustle. He's always running. He's always making plays, and he almost had 30 points last night. That's a bonus for us. We're putting him on the court and in the starting lineup as a defensive guy, and he's giving us almost 30 points. Hudson Flynn, talk about your guy, Bruce Brown, because we've been talking about Bruce Brown for weeks.
It's free points. And honestly, like, I can't even imagine a time when there was a discussion that, like, Bruce Brown, should he be in the rotation? Should he even get minutes? That's not even a question anymore. That shouldn't be a question for the rest of his time here with the Nets, because it's pretty clear, like, he's not a shooter. He's not like a TLC type guy who for a little while, with his performance in the bubble, we thought, oh, he might be special hit because his shots were falling. Bruce Brown's shots don't not fall because he's taking them from 2 feet away from the basket. Bruce Brown doesn't not play well because he's an energy guy. He's an effort guy. He's always going to bring that. That's never going to change. That's what his game is. And honestly, like, that's exactly what the Nets need. And it's just like, Sean Marks, he should be put in prison. He should be locked up because he is just stealing from the rest of the league. This is the second time he's stolen from the Pistons after taking away Spencer Dinwiddie. It's just ridiculous what he's been able to do. Give him executive of the decade. Give him best executive all time. Put him in the Hall of Fame. It's just ridiculous what they've been able to do. And it's just another part of that trend that we've seen in this winning streak where the Nets are getting contributions top to bottom and really being able to make it work without our best player, Kevin Durant.
Man, Sean Marks, who does he think he is? Brian Cashman? This guy's making moves. He's making Cashman finds, Cashman steals. I like that. And last thing I'll say about BB Bruce Brown, the Kings did it to themselves. Weren't the Kings on like a 7-game losing streak and they were talking shit to Bruce Brown? What? Don't put the battery in his back. That's what a guy like Bruce Brown needs. Y'all chirping? All right, I got something for y'all. 3-ball, in your face, shimmy, trending on
Talk
Twitter.
To the bench. Ridiculous. He's got the energy. He's got the hype. I love it. I love what this Nets team are bringing with him. It's just a great time to be a Nets fan, honestly.
So last night, to me, to me, it looked like we were just trying things, trying guys out. I talked about Robertson, Shump, Claxton making his debut, and it was literally like a tryout because right after the game, you knew what time it was. I think Hudson tweeted out, hey, moves got to be made by the 24th. And I'll let Hudson speak quickly to the moves that we made last night because we got to get to this interview. People are pressing play on this like, yo, where's the interview?
Yeah, they're probably skipping all this, but I'll hit it real quick. So we had to make moves. We had to waive some people before the guarantee deadline, which was a Wednesday, the 24th at 5 p.m., where non-guaranteed contracts would become guaranteed. For example, TLC, Timothé Luau-Cabarrot, his contract is now a $1.8 million guaranteed money. That's money in his pocket. We didn't have to do anything with him. But the same thing would have happened with Roberson, Vonleh, and Shump. And the Nets didn't want to do that. They didn't want to give them that guaranteed money. So what they do after the game last night, they waived them. All three of them waived off the team. But then we find out, like we honestly expected, that Roberson and Shump, Roberson, they were saying it differently on the broadcast last night. They had me all confused.
Kustok said Roberson, so I'm going with Sarah Kustok. Shout out to her.
We can't not give Sarah her love. But yeah, so they're probably going to be coming back on 10 days. Noah Vonleh, probably not. The Vonleh era is over. Never really even got started. But our defensive pieces, Roberson and Shump, are probably going to be coming back on 10 days. And then obviously they'll be reevaluated constantly to see if they fit on this team. But as it stands, the Nets are down one with at least one roster spot open, potentially more to be used in a trade or at the buyout deadline a little later in April to get one of those big names onto this Nets team.
So that's it. The Nets are 21-12. They are second place in the East, a half game back from the Sixers. We're on their ass. It's going to happen. Embiid is a beast, but it's going to happen at some point. And you knew this interview was going to happen at some point. So without further ado, the host of the Etceteras, the ETCs with Kevin Durant, the one and only Boogie Buzzins, a.k.a. at Bansky, Eddie Gonzalez on Talkin Nets. Okay, bonus episode, special episode. We've had some guests on Talkin Nets, but not a guest like this, man. I'm super pumped about this because, like I said, this is what I've been trying to do. You know, get some people on the pod that aren't necessarily players or commentators. You know, we've had some players, we've had people from the Yes Network, but this guy, man, this is just a guy that I became a fan of recently. Didn't know that I was following him on Twitter for a couple years, I think. And then I put 2 and 2 together. The way the internet works, man, you don't really always know what's going on. But this guy is the co-host of the ETCs, the Etceteras podcast with KD, Kevin Durant. This guy, I spotted on Instagram, Twitter as well. He was nice enough to make the time and come on the show. You might know him as Boogie Buzzins. You might know him as Bansky, or you might know him as Eddie Gonzalez. Eddie, what's good, man? Welcome to the show. This is Talkin Nets. Keith McPherson, Hudson Flynn. Yo, we're excited to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. Thanks for that nice intro, too. Happy to be here. Fan of what you guys are doing. Always repping the Nets. And so, yeah, I'm excited to get the invite.
Oh yeah, I'll go first. I mean, this is an interview. This is about Eddie, but this is not going to be so when were you born and where did but we do got to give a backstory. We do got to fill some people in because I'm sure there's people, we're pulling in people from overseas. Got to shout out our overseas people. There's people that are new to the Nets world. Don't want to call them bandwagons, but it's okay. They're bandwagons. They're new. They might not have heard of you. They might not have heard of your podcast. So give them some background on how you got in the game, where you're from, what you're doing right now, and why they should know who you are.
Yeah, so I've been working in media for about a decade now. I started off doing music writing a long time ago with another company and just kind of worked my way up and always had interest in sports. So I dabbled in sports wherever I could. A little over a year ago, I was actually part of the ESPN social media team. That's probably my most official entry into sports media. But yeah, I met Kevin off Twitter and we struck up a friendship and we talked a lot about, hey, how do we work together? Let's do something, let's build, and trying to find ways to fit into what he's got already going with 35 Ventures and with Boardroom and all the things he does with Rich. And eventually we settled on a varied role that I have with the company. But one of the main things I do is the podcast. I've had a lot of fun doing it with him. It's a goal of mine. It's part of the company and working with Kevin is people to see this side of Kevin that they don't often get to see and see how, normal he can be. And I think a lot of people would see him. He is an alien on the basketball court, but off the court, he's just one of the guys. And I want people to see that and enjoy that the same way that I do. So been a crazy journey, man, but I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it, trying to just do the best I can with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's kind of the vision that a lot of people have of you, though. That's, got associated with KD, started working with him, did the podcast, working with 35 Ventures. But, honestly, that's, to me feels like kind of it diminishes a little bit you and your character, right? Being associated, so much with this, all world athlete, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. So like, us bringing you onto this podcast, we kind of want to hear about, you yourself. Obviously, a lot of people listening to your podcast, they've heard a lot about you, whether it's, talking about hip hop, whether it's talking about all sports, just talking, So like when it comes to you and you personally, like what are like your goals, with the podcast, with everything that you're doing? Like, what's your arc? What's your goals?
Man, I mean, I'm happy you said that because there is a little bit of that, and that's fine. It doesn't bother me. It's just nature of who my friend is, really. Like, so it's kind of funny to me. But my goal, I'm a storyteller, like at heart. So my goal is always to tell the best stories, and to me, they're in sports, they're in music, they're in hip hop. Where I do most of my storytelling. So I look at what I'm doing with Kevin and the work I do with Kevin and the Boardroom and 35 Ventures is just new opportunities to tell stories and to tell Kevin's story and in some ways tell mine. And again, I just kind of enjoy the journey, and I don't view myself as this important person or important part of this story either, but I do know that there is intrigue, and it is kind of funny to me that it does get minimized to, this is a guy that Kevin, met on a burner or whatever, but because Kevin respects the work, and it's not like he's just handing out jobs to these people he thinks are funny on Twitter or whatever. And, it took a lot of work to get to where I'm at. And I feel like I got a lot of work ahead of me to get where I want to be, but it's a very intriguing job. It's very funny when, I talk to people and they go, what do you do? And I explain, or like when I meet you guys, I'm like, all right, well, email me at this email. And then you see what my email is. So it's intriguing, but I enjoy it. I enjoy every step of the journey. And, so to answer your question though, I view myself as a storyteller, and I'm always looking for the best stories to tell. And this is a great story, the one that we're in now.
Awesome, man. So I've been listening to the podcast from the jump. Obviously, the Kyrie episode kicked you guys off, went viral. Mm-hmm. Everybody was taking clips from that. Everybody was taking the quotables, the sound bites from that, and just running with them. And of course, Nets fans, plugged in. But listening to the podcast, I also caught that you're a Raiders fan, right?
Yes.
And what I don't know is you know, what NBA team is your allegiance? Like, okay, so your allegiance is gonna be with KD and the Nets, or, you know, but if you're a Raiders fan, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you got into basketball, sports, and what it was like coming up when you were a kid. Like, what sparked your interest in sports, and what were your teams growing up as a child?
Yeah, so I'm 35. So I think a lot of people my age, it's, obviously Michael Jordan. I used to really love Gary Payton. He's from the Bay Area. I'm from Sacramento, so it's near enough. I used to really love Gary Payton. But I think the player that sparked my interest most in basketball was Jason Williams. And that was with the hometown team, with the Kings. And, I still can remember him wearing the hyper flights, the bright purple hyper flights in the game, and Kings making deep playoff runs and stuff. So there probably was a time where I would consider myself a Kings fan. I think I was a little bit of a nomad, one of those new age fans. I root for players. LeBron, I'm a huge LeBron fan. I think before Kevin and I became really good friends, that was my favorite player. And I think it still might be in a lot of ways. But Kevin is my guy. So obviously there's rooting interest there. So as of now, I don't know. I'm just an NBA fan, rooting for the Nets, obviously, rooting for my friend to see make sure he does well. Just in the same way you'd root for any of your friends kind of in what they do with work. His work just happens to be really exciting and popular and famous. So it's a long-winded way to say, I kind of root for a lot of people. But Jason Williams definitely was like a breakthrough moment for me when I was younger. Like, I really got to try to do with this guy. I used to hop around and dribble like him and shoot them wild ass threes and that he would take that are kind of like way more commonplace now.
Mm-hmm.
But Jay Will used to, he do the tween and hop to the left with the headsy and shoot a long three. And it's like, yo, why is he doing that? It was so foreign to everybody. And now it's like normal shot in the NBA. So
you ain't got to tell me. You might have to tell Hudson. Hudson was, I don't even think Hudson was really alive or
I'm sure there's 30 for 30s I can catch up on.
I think they had.
It's making me feel like a child on this podcast.
You were youngin', man. I'm just talking about time in the timeline, but I think there was a 30 for 30 with Randy Moss and
Jason, yeah.
Yeah,
because they went to high school together.
West Virginia, yeah. And
yep.
So, no coincidence that we opened the podcast talking about the Kings. We played the Kings last night, and you tell us that you were a Kings fan. You came up in the Chris Webber era of Lottie Divac. Yep. Like, yeah, that's what's up, man. I'll let the next question come from Hudson.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate this isn't the best segue, but I got a question for you, just because, obviously, our biggest platform right now is Twitter, nearing 6K, not quite your 34K, but we see you interacting with people on Twitter, always kind of bringing that burner energy, always talking to everybody, putting out lots of tweets. What's the story behind like the name, the persona? Like why keep it as like this persona, like Bansky, Boogie Buzzins, rather than, go with yourself like you do, on your podcasts and all that?
Well, I like to think this is myself. I started Twitter like way back 2009. I was at a journalism conference and they're like, yo, this app is the one, I'm telling you. But that was when it was like a tool for journalists to spread news, right? Not a place for people to just be funny and be jerks to other people. Twitter just works for me though. Like I feel like I call it diarrhea of the brain. Like I just have so much going on, and this is an easy way to blurt it out. Just constantly get these little musings off, 100 characters at a time, and then bounce. But I don't mind interacting. It's funny to me. I don't take none of it personal. So a lot of times I'll follow people who come at me really like in a funny way. It's like, yo, that was a good one. All right, let me follow you. And they turn out to be funny people, and I'll strike up friendships with people and even end up working with people. So, I like to think this is more of like the most asshole version of myself. I'm a little more calm and like, regular, I guess, in real life. But this is a place where I can kind of stroke that part of my personality. As far as the name, like the name is a typo. Like one of my best friends, like he's a big Banksy fan. And I had like a running joke, like, because, Banksy's incognito, nobody knows who he is. I said, yo, I could be Banksy. You have no idea. And then at the time it was AIM. This is how long ago that was. I made my AIM name Banksy or Bansky. And he let me go with it for a long time. And he finally was like, yo, it's Banksy, right? It's Banksy, right? And I'm like, yo, what? And he's like, yeah, but by then it had stuck, and here we are. I made a lot of money off that Twitter account, so I guess he did me a favor, man. So it's been it was a complete accident. And Boogie Buzzins is just a play on DeMarcus, man. I love DeMarcus. I've had a nice opportunity to meet him, meet some of his team and stuff, and he's great. I think he's amazing and passionate player, and he's hilarious. So I just roll with that, and it's stuck. And 100 people a day think I'm DeMarcus, and I'm not DeMarcus.
And your bio says not like the first thing it says is not Boogie Cousins. But
yeah, man, it shows how much people read.
Yo, so I mean, Twitter is a great place, and it's evolved over time. And like you were saying, like when I first got on Twitter, I thought it was like a news feed too, like for journalists and for writers to put out articles, and you scroll your timeline and you see what's up. But now, I mean, like what we're doing with Talkin Nets, we gain our followers off of our coverage of the live games. We gain our followers off of our memes. We gain our followers off of our funny videos, but then also throwing out stats and just whatever we could find. And last week, I think it was a hip hop outlet. They put out a video of Wiz Khalifa. I think he was on his Instagram live, and he was talking about KD leaving him outside the club, how he had to go and get right. And then he came back, found KD in the club with a bottle. So I immediately was like, hold on, like we need to get clarity on this. We need the other side of the story. And I didn't add KD. I think I added you from the Talkin Nets account. And I was like, yo, we might need you to check on that. And then you responded saying that there's some lost tapes. There's a lost podcast. There's a story that was told on wax somewhere. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
And so I don't know that this story is like a big secret. I'll leave Kevin to eventually give out the details if he chooses to, but I can say, yes, we did record a version of the Etceteras episode way back. And it was with my good friend, Justin Tinsley, who works at the Undefeated. And we were talking about, this era of rap, the blog era of rap. And Kevin had brought up Wiz, who was like Flight School and all these mixtapes around then. And it wasn't Wiz yet, just yet. So, and he did tell us the story of them meeting at a club in DC and, a little bit of mishap. So long story short, Wiz had it about right. It wasn't as like it wasn't as like mean as probably it sounded. It happens, man. Sometimes you got your boy gets stuck outside the club. He don't want to take his hat off, or he don't got the hard bottom shoes or whatever. And we've all been there.
Yeah.
And so it just so happened that these two guys that were there were KD and Wiz Khalifa. So, but like Wiz said, he eventually got in the club and they popped some bottles and hey, they got to, live it up. So hopefully there's no hard feelings. I don't think there is. And, maybe Kevin tell his side of the story eventually.
Nah, no hard feelings. I mean, Wiz just said like, he found him later in the club. Go ahead, Hudson. Hudson's about to tell you about the clubs that he stuck into. Hudson's 19. He hasn't been there yet. He doesn't know about that experience.
Oh, man.
Nah, look, what I'm saying, though, is I think that's kind of the great thing that you get. And you mentioned it briefly with your podcast is, everyone sees Kevin and these great people that, you bring on your podcast and everything that you do with the et ceteras is it brings this like personal side of these figures that like, especially like in the Twitter era have kind of just been like reduced to like KD's a basketball player. Kyrie's a basketball player. They can't do, and especially with Kyrie, like it seems like they can't do anything other than be a basketball player without getting some kind of hate, stemming from their play or, people that don't like them because of what they did to their team and stuff like that. So, from your perspective and you calling yourself a storyteller, it seems like you're getting these crazy stories with these awesome people, but they're really just regular people that do have extraordinary talent. So can you kind of speak to like just the experience, like even when you first met KD and when you first started entering this world, like kind of what it was like realizing that these are just regular people that can do extraordinary things?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, I worked as a music writer for years, and that was kind of where I learned this the most. You meet some of these artists and it's like, oh, they are regular people with extraordinary talents and jobs that we see. And I think the analogy I often use is if you go to the grocery store, the guy who rings you up, like you don't imagine him just practicing this 10 hours a day and then that's all he does. You realize that he has hobbies and he has shows he likes in music and whatever. And it's the same way for, a hooper, for a musician. It's like, hoopers, you can only work out so many days. So many hours in the day you have to go home and do something. And yeah, they're regular guys. They play Call of Duty, they play 2K, they watch movies, they read, they listen to podcasts or what have you, and they have all these interests. And that intrigues me almost more than their process of being great at what they do. Because we kind of know the process at this point. You work really hard. You were gifted, you won the DNA lottery in a lot of ways, but you work really hard and you're in the gym and you stay in great shape and you work on your craft just like you and I do at our jobs. It's like if we all linked up, we might talk about work for a few minutes and then we would talk about all the other shit we like, because who wants to get off work and then talk about work, And so I just approach it like that. Like we ask on every episode, what do you do in your free time? Like, what do you watch? What do you listen to? Because I'm intrigued with that. I mean, I want to know what Kyrie's doing. I know he's incredible at dribbling and he practices that all the time. He's got one of the most beautiful games ever. But is Kyrie listening to the new Lil Baby album? Like, what is he doing? And that's the kind of stuff I want to know. And we're often able to get that. And I appreciate that the guests come and they're as open as they are.
Yo, it's crazy. The way that I heard of your podcast is the same way I heard of the artist St. John. It was on Joe Budden podcast. And they've also put me on to a couple other people or things, which is crazy. Like, and you see what Joe is doing with his podcast now and their move to Patreon and all this stuff. Like what I want to know is the thought process on your podcast, because you guys don't really talk about basketball. I listen to y'all talk about the NFL for about like 15, 20 minutes on, the Catching Up with KD pod. But tell me the process, linking with KD and saying, hey, we're going to bring producers on the pod. We're going to bring in Biggs. We're going to bring in Quavo. I don't want to forget produced by Ali and Noah 40 Shabib, if people didn't listen yet. But what was the process behind that? And I even love the fact that y'all got like the Drake instrumentals in there. Like it's a cultural pod. It's a pod that basically is mashing up two things that most of us know go hand in hand, hip hop and basketball. But what was the process between you and KD workshopping that, maybe doing test episodes and figuring out, hey, this is our lane?
Well, Kevin is real hands-on, and we just draw from the conversations we have. We have in person, we'll have in a group chat or whatever. We'll draw off that, and what we quickly realized was we're not talking about hoop as much. We're talking about music. We're talking about movies. We're talking about TV. We're talking about culture. We're talking about these things you grew up on, these nostalgic things, and out of nowhere, we might launch into this really long convo about whether this album or that album was better, or which sneaker we liked the best, or about when white Air Force Ones kind of like just were the wave and you had to have them, simple stuff like that. And we realized, if these conversations intrigue us, they'll intrigue other people. And so Kevin's real hands-on, and he'll let me know, let's talk about this, let's talk about that. And you'll hear us on the pod sometimes say, hey, work is great, but like, let's talk about some other stuff. And he'll laugh and like, yeah, work is great, because it is work to him. That's his job. He loves hoop and he loves his job, but it's his job. He's got other stuff he's interested in, and there's 20 more hours in every day that he's doing things. So, we just wanted to be as wide ranging as possible, and we didn't want it to be a typical Kevin just talking about hoop deal. Like he does that every day. He gets on Zoom every day. He plays, and they'll ask him, this and that about hoop. But we wanted to talk about more than that and expand kind of the idea of what Kevin Durant is to people and see more of that. And it's way more in my wheelhouse. Like, I love basketball and I feel like I'm a knowledgeable fan, but who am I to break down ball with Kevin Durant? Like, like every once in a while I catch me texting him after a game, like, oh, you should have did this. I'm like, nah, let me not send that. Like, he knows what he should have did on the court. He's KD. So I kind of just imagine like the other way, like if he's standing over my computer and adding commas to my article or some shit, it's like, yo, watch out, Kevin. What are you doing? But like times 100. So yeah, we just wanted to be as wide ranging and as true to the conversations we have as possible.
Yeah, funny, you got me.
I had the visual of KD over your shoulder, like proofreading your work, like that meme with Young Thug looking at the computer.
Yep.
It's funny. You got me laughing too over my white Air Force Ones that I got in my closet right now. But you've made it pretty clear. Obviously you have all these wide ranging interests, but this is an NBA pod, and you are a hip hop head. So let's combine the two. We got a lot of NBA players that are putting out albums, that are dropping singles. You got Dame Dollar, you got Lonzo Ball put out an album a little while back. From your, and I'm going to call it an expert opinion, since you were in the business, what do you think? Who do you think is the best rappers releasing the best music out of all the players in the NBA?
I think you got to go with Dame. Dame is in that weird. He's in a space where, not weird, but he's in a space where he's even getting respected by like the actual rappers. So I think you got to go with Dame. There's some sleepers in there. I like what Marvin Bagley was doing. I like Oladipo. Like,
yeah,
he's not a rapper,
that man
but
went
he's making great
on the Masked
music.
Singer. He's got a voice.
Yeah.
That man can sing.
There's a lot of guys in the league, man, with a lot of talents that are just beyond what they do on the court. And I'm excited that they're able to tap into that. You watch, Russ with his clothing line, and Nick Young has a clothing line, and Brandon Jennings has a clothing line that I love. And so I'm excited that those guys are able to tap into those interests and really, really explore that. But as far as the music, I think Dame has to be the guy, right? Dame is trading bars with Lil Wayne and stuff like that. Like, that's dope. It's dope that he does that and still, gets on the court and does his thing. And I like when they're not rapping about basketball, like Dame is rapping about life and stuff. So that's cool. I like seeing that. I guess Kevin dabbles every now and then. It'd be interesting to see if he ever does anything with that. But
he might have to release some tapes.
Yo, and shout out to Kyrie's bars. Like, where's that song?
Yeah.
Did you get that to us?
Yeah, that was impressive.
We talked. I think I played it on the pod, Hudson. We definitely talked about that.
And he was in the car too. He was just going over like a beat. It wasn't anything like scripted. That was crazy.
That was to one up LeBron. He did that to one up LeBron because LeBron usually raps other people's lyrics in the car and messes them up. Kyrie's like, hold on, I got my own bars.
I got my own joint. He needs to let that go, man. We need to hear that.
I wanted to hear it because I'm a Yankee fan, and he said something like, "I'm spitting Yankee jewels," something about Babe Ruth. I'm like, oh,
he got the Yankee jewels swinging Bambino tools. I remember
yeah,
that.
I'm like, yo, he's been in New York for some time. He's understanding the Yankee way, but yeah, Dame Dollar. Number one, Dame Dollar is actually rapping in Bolt 24 commercials and a Hulu commercial. Like, that's how you know it's another level. When you're an NBA superstar, and last year, we saw him at the All-Star game perform, and that blew me away. I think I talked about it on Talkin Nets. Like, yo, we are at the point where NBA All-Stars are performing at the All-Star game. And then you see the commercials. He's getting the bag off of Hulu and Gatorade, and he's telling them, I want to rap something in the commercial. I want them to see me as a rapper. And if it's not Dame Dollar, number two got to be Aaron Gordon, right?
AG with the D-Wade dish, man. I remember, man. I want to hear more. You know who I want to hear more from? My guy LaMelo Ball.
And your dog. That's where you gotta, if you gotta step off and tend to the dog, do your thing.
We're good. My girl just got home, so the dog is in the park.
All good. Yeah. Well, we ain't gonna keep you much longer. We got a couple more minutes and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, we're good to go. We're straight now. Dogs are cool. But I want to hear LaMelo rap more, man. I know Zoe got bars, and I know that family's full of entertainers. So shout out to the young boy. I want to see what he got. I like his taste. Every time they ask him about music and he starts listing off who he likes and doesn't like, I like where he goes with it, man. I want to see more from LaMelo.
And then
Anthony Edwards too.
Charlotte, he was dropping some things as well. In the car, in like the parking lot, he was freestyling. That was crazy.
Yeah, we got to see more from Ant, man. The Ant Man, I think he got some bars. I want to see it.
I rap too, but I rap about baseball. I haven't stepped into the basketball world yet because I know they're gonna get me if I don't come immaculate over the mic about the Nets or the NBA. Somebody gonna be like, "You trash."
I mean, they got J. Cole working for the Pistons now too.
Yeah, man. Hey, the worlds of hip hop and hoop and sports in general, they just mesh so much, man. And then that's kind of what, not to make it all about me, but that's kind of what the et cetera is about, and the whole idea of that concept. So, I love seeing it. I love seeing it because there's a lot of people who, just like us, who grew up with those two worlds, and they were kind of the center of everything. And you have a conversation with me, I'm likely to relate just about anything back to that. It don't matter what we're talking about. I'm gonna bring up a bar. I'm gonna bring up, he compares to this player from '93 or whatever. And that's just my constant. That's my baseline all the time.
Man, it's about the culture. It's like, I say this to people all the time, right? When they talk about African-American culture and like Black people not having a culture because they were taken from Africa and their culture was stolen from them. I'm like, no, pay attention. Like, American culture is our culture. This basketball stuff, this music, like, that's our export to the world. We are the culture. And these podcasts are doing such a great job of, talking and taking that extra step into the culture. Your podcast, even like All the Smoke, the Knuckleheads, letting former players interview current players and interview rappers. And then, it all flows so well. So we did a live podcast in Brooklyn like 11 days ago. Are there any plans for the et ceteras to do a live show? I know we're coming out of the pandemic and COVID and stuff, but if you could tell us what the future holds for the et ceteras. We know you got a new podcast coming out, and we got a free podcast with the COVID protocols and KD having some time. You threw us a bonus. This podcast will be out Thursday, February 25th, as well as your new podcast that's coming out or your new episode that's coming out. I'm just trying to get to ask you, like, what's next? What's coming up next? What's next for you?
Man, we got a lot of plans for the company. I would love to do a live show. Look, Kay got to deal with NBA protocols and COVID, so we got to tread lightly there. But maybe in the off season, he has more time and a little bit more freedom, and the world is a little different. Would definitely love to do some stuff like that. But yeah, we're just building. We're slowly building with this company. We just I think we have 2 new shows out, 2 new shows on the horizon. We're just gonna build up the boardroom. We want it to be a major hub for everybody to come to for all different types of content, and whether it's written, whether it's video, whether it's podcasts, whether it's docs, whether it's shorts, whether it's whatever, Instagram Live. We've been killing it on Clubhouse. So I just want to build with the company as much as we can. I got a bunch of ideas in the tank, and hopefully we start building some of that up. But as far as the podcast and everything with Kev, yeah, well, I mean, the possibilities are limitless. And as the world opens up, we'd love to do something, maybe with a Brooklyn crowd, maybe for the home team and something live. It would be dope. And we were able to kind of do that with Quavo, but we would love to have something we could do in front of a crowd and a select group, if whatever. But everything is possible going forward. And I know Kevin is dying to expand what we do.
You said in front of a crowd. That had me thinking about the Kings game, first Nets game with a crowd. And a lot of people are talking about how expensive the tickets are. Maybe not, the realest of real Nets fans being able to get in there because, we're not all millionaires. But what about you? What are your plans? Are you going to be in the arena sometime soon, the Barclays Center?
Man, I might show up, man. I nudge Kevin here and there, and I'm sure it's one of those things. Like, if I ask directly enough, I could make happen. But I don't want to bug him. He's trying to get back on the court now, and I try to leave him to focus. But I'll probably come check a couple out here and there when I get a chance. Hopefully, they expand it a little more going forward. And I know New York just opened up a bunch of different stuff. Jersey opened up a bunch of different stuff, and I stay in Jersey. I stay in Weehawken, so it's always just a short hop, skip, and a jump. And yeah, hopefully I will, man. Hopefully I'll get to check out that Laker game because I'm looking forward to that one. And I got to trash talk Kev when that comes around. He told us on the podcast, man, maybe I'll miss it and just piss you off, and he missed it. So oh boy, man, now I gotta go. Now I think that's last year I went to Lakers and then I went to Heat. Those were probably the last 2 games I went to. And I was teasing them before the Laker game. Like, man, I'm about to wear my bronze jersey. It's cool. And they might turn you away at the door. So it was it's always good fun trash talking them on the way to that. But maybe that's the one I'll make my appearance at, hopefully.
Yo, you mentioned that you live in my hood, in my area. I saw you tweet about getting some bang cookies dropped off. I think I got to connect for you to get them from Jersey City to Weehawken. If it's not Postmates, I know somebody else that does stuff like that, that'll literally pick them up and drive them to your door.
Dog, I need a whole new app, man. I'm trying to get those insomnia cookies from Hoboken.
That's what it is. Insomnia cookies. Right
outside the window, like they got the window on the website. I'm like, come on, bro. And it's no parking. It's like
that's next for 35 Ventures.
There you go, man. Like Weehawken is in this weird spot. There's no restaurants. There's some a little bit further up.
Fort Imperial.
Yeah, that's exactly. And there's some a little south in Hoboken, but right here where I'm at is nothing. So it's like it's hit or miss with the Uber Eats, man. But I'm trying.
All right, man. Let's wrap this up. Yo, we appreciate you coming on. This has been awesome talking to you, connecting with you. We'll see you online. Tell the people where they can find you online. Plug yourself. They should know, but go ahead and let them know where to find you.
Yeah, I mean, the best place is probably Twitter, Bansky. That's I've probably annoyed you before. I'm sorry. I'm not actually a terrible person. But
No,
yeah,
we haven't gotten the hate yet. I'm looking for it. I'm waiting for.
No,
I'm
he's
waiting
probably
for you
talking to
come in our
NBA
comments.
Twitter. I think he's just talking NBA Twitter.
Yeah, I'm talking in general. Like, I've probably annoyed most of the people listening to this in some way, shape, or form, right? But besides Twitter, you can catch me on the Etceteras podcast with KD. Everywhere you get your pods. By the time you hear this, I think our new episode will be up. Spoiler alert: it's with Shams Charania. So it's fun convo, man. We got to talk to Shams about life more so than his job. We know he's great at his job, but feel like never got to know who Shams is, and we did. We found out what he's listening to, what he's watching, what he's into. We found out he hoops a little bit, and a lot more stuff. So it was really fun. We dropped the pod every other week, and got some exciting stuff on the way. So tune in there and yeah, just check us out. We're trying to build with the boardroom, and we got a lot of things going on, and slowly start trickling these out. And good luck to the Nets, man. I'm rooting, of course. I'm rooting for my guy, and I think I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to make no predictions, but they're a really, really, really good team right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel the energy when they show up at these people's gyms that they know this is for real. This isn't. There's no debate over whose team it is. There's none of that. There's none of that stuff. There's none of that. There's only one ball. All these narratives, that's all out the window. And you can start seeing these teams when they walk in the room, they got to lock in and they know it. So I'm excited to see what happens. And, K should be back on the court soon, and we get to see what they really got going on. And yeah, man, it's going to be a fun season. It's going to be a fun season. It's weird that it just started, but it's going to be a fun season.
Solid, man. Eddie, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And that's all we got. Talking Nets, episode 83 with Eddie Gonzalez.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yo, man, Eddie was great. Like, he's got the voice. I knew that from the podcast. And you never really know everything about somebody, even like trying to research him and look him up. You can't find that much. And in a 30-minute conversation, we didn't get everything, but we got a lot. And hey, I mean, I hope to meet him in real life. I hope to connect with him in real life. And I hope everybody listening enjoyed that episode. Hudson, what were you thinking when we were talking to KD's co-host, Eddie Gonzalez? That guy he's on the way up. He's done some things out here in media, and I'm glad we got that episode in with him.
Yeah, that's what I took from it. It's like, you think when you make it, right, with you're recording a podcast with KD, working with 35 Ventures, like, you think that, like, that's like as high as anyone can get, but it's really clear that, like, he's still on the way up. Like, he said he's only 35. Like, he's got so many more things like left to do, like with KD, but also like with his life and like the things that he's striving towards and his goals. Like, I'm excited just to have been able to talk to him at honestly what I feel like is like the ground floor.
Yeah, man. He came from Cali. He's over here in Jersey, lives right in my area. He's doing big things with KD. He said that he was a social media person for ESPN, former music journalist. Man, I'm sure he's well connected. And everybody listening to this podcast, go follow him. Go support the podcast. You should be subscribed and downloaded to the ETCs. If you're listening to us, we appreciate that. But they got something crazy going on there, and they're just getting started. This has been Talkin Nets, episode 83, a special bonus episode in the middle of the week. We'll be back after the Magic game, and we'll be back after the Mavericks game. And that'll probably be Monday. But make sure you subscribe to the pod. Make sure you follow us at Talkin Nets. You can follow me at Keith McPherson. Hudson Flynn, where can they follow you?
They can follow me at Hudson Flynn _ on everything.
And call the voicemail. I know some people that are still like, hey, there's a voicemail. How do I get on the show? Where's the number? Area code 201-870-0461. Call in. We'll put you on the show. And just follow John Boy Media and everything we're doing, man. We're heading into baseball season. It was a warm day in New York today. We got 55 degrees out here. Things are changing. We're making it shake. We're using everything that we got to make moves and do things out here. And the Nets are still winning, still on a win streak. And we're going into the All-Star break and all that. And it's a good time to be a Nets fan. And, you know, Eddie Gonzalez said he's rooting for the Nets. He's pulling for the Nets. And everybody knows. Let's go Nets. Brooklyn.
We go